This is a Syok podcast. Syok.
This is Syok Life Confessions podcast with me, Reza Abraham. Today's guest is someone who came a long way and worked with numerous A-class organizations in a variety of industries from consulting, recruitment, manufacturing, insurance, and finally found his niche in the music industry when he became the managing director of Universal Music Group Malaysia, Singapore, and Indochina. And today, since the beginning of 2021, he's the CEO of Astro Radio and director of Astro Media Solutions. Thank you for being in our show, Kenny Ong.
Thank you. I love being here.
How does it feel to be interviewing your own company?
Well, it's kind of weird. It's like self-promotion. So I'll try to tone it down. Yeah.
Are you do that like often or no? You prefer to be behind the scenes and see your teams do the job?
There are two parts to it, right? One is as a character. I don't like to be upfront. So I don't like to be in the public eye. I don't like mingling a lot. But as part of the job, then it is something that I need to do regardless of what I feel. I already accept it as part of my duties.
Nice. So are you coming from a family of sounds and music, or sound and music is something that it found you?
Oh no, so I'm totally tone deaf. Music-wise, I have no inclination.
Sure.
I mean, when I was very young, I think they call it like keyboard organ lessons, right? So grade 1, I was kicked out of the class after 2 lessons. The teacher came to our house but refunded the money back to my parents and said, this kid cannot learn music. So she rather not teach me. And then
or maybe you've been too smart, you know.
No, it's just tone deaf. I just cannot recognize and differentiate music. Music to me has never been a big part of my life, when I was young. So I just came into it by accident during work.
So what's your story? How did all these things happen?
Well, I mean, if you talk about currently in Astro, where I'm managing radio and all the music components and also Universal Music just before that, I came into it, I think, by accident, right? So I was with another company at the time, and I was then headhunted to join Universal Music. Music label. And at that point in time, the music industry was going through a very, very big change from the CD days, and it went down, piracy, and those kind of things. So, and revenue-wise, it was really, really bad. So they wanted somebody to come and transform the business. So there are 2 words, right? Music business, right? So the music part was okay, but the business part wasn't doing well.
True.
So, but they needed somebody who wasn't from the industry to come and transform it. Because if you came from the music industry, you will be so in love with the music part, you won't know how to run the business side.
Correct.
So that's what happened to most of the music companies and music labels during that point in time. So I got it and did my part on the business part of the music business, and that's how I got involved with music. And then later, naturally came over to Astro.
Sure. So why do you think people actually love to listen to radio?
I think radio has a different organic feel to it. So if you listen to, any streaming services, right? But currently it's quite popular, and you listen to a streaming service and you have your playlist, it's a bit inorganic. So it's just music, right? And then if you listen, like for example, even if you have your own playlist, you notice a lot of people, even if they have own playlist, after a while they will do random. So it's because they get so bored of the kind of music that they're playing.
Yep.
And many people who are subscribing to music services, they download what we call a random playlist. That means it's not their own. It's a playlist, recommended by somebody because they don't want to be stuck. But if you notice that radio is still very popular in this part of the world and in many parts of the world, right? It's because people want to feel a connection with the sound, not just playing music. They want to listen to organic voices. They want to listen to people who talk naturally instead of like a pre-recorded robotic kind of stuff. They just don't want to listen to just music, one after another. So radio still plays a very big part on people trying to connect to the world. So radio is like a campfire, so where people sit around and enjoy. They don't necessarily need to give input, they just need to feel the warmth.
So they have that like connection sometimes with the host, sometimes with the DJs. Somebody do that job of thinking of like what's the next best music for me, right?
Yes. And that's why radio is so popular. And that's the reason why I think podcast is popular as well. Because again, a lot of podcasts are very organic, natural. They are not like a rehearsed script. There are some audio dramas, but if you look at it, the organic kind of podcasts are a lot more popular.
I think podcast itself is one of the areas that I was personally amazed. I first came to understanding of about podcasts when I was going through one program many years ago. This is like about 15, 16 years ago. So I was attending this talk by this guy by the name of Brian Tracy. So Brian is actually is like the author of like so many great books. Like my favorite one was Eat the Ugliest Frog First.
Yes.
Yeah. So it means like always start your job with the the hardest job in the world. And then he has these very interesting lessons that he said that turn your car to a portable university. And then, I mean, back then, like 15, 16 years ago, podcast was not a big deal and not many people even listened to it, right? But today, actually, there's a lot of opportunities. And I myself, normally, when I'm driving to the morning, my go-to places is often I just listen to like really, really valuable podcasts that I can learn a lot from them. And then I think radio is doing a pretty good job in that area as well by inviting some of the greatest guests so that, they can come in and share the insights. So meaning that when your hands are busy with the wheel, your brain can do the learning part for you. So what do you do actually yourself when you're driving to the office? Like, do you have like those kind of habits of listening to some cool stuff?
Well, for now, radio has become like a job, right? So I have to tune into the different radio stations as I'm driving to work just to check on every station. So I listen to almost all the 11 stations that we have, including the Malay stations, the English, the Chinese, and even our Tamil station Raga. So I'm just listening it just to listen to the quality of the voices and listen to quality and the music and how they're presenting it. So that becomes like a job. But if it's for entertainment, I just switch between usually the English and the Chinese stations.
Sure.
Between the two.
So can I ask you which one is your favorite one?
No, I
no bias.
I will let you know. Yeah, all 11 are my favorite. So yeah.
So what is at the CEO? What do you pay attention to the most? Like, what is your strength? Like when you listen to them, I'm sure you have your own traits that, okay, so I pay a lot of attention to the content. I pay a lot of attention to the quality. What do you usually pay attention to?
I think two things. One is from I think you call it technical perspective, will be the music, the kind of music that we are selecting and it's flowing. So because we choose different music for different time slots, right? Daytime will be different kind of music, afternoon will be different. And to look at, what kind of music do we play? Do we play songs on repetition? Do we, are the same songs playing over and over again? Are we playing songs that people have not heard? It's a discovery thing. So those are kind of things I do pay attention to, but that is more from a technical perspective. Overall, one of the things I do pay close attention to is the mood in the room among the announcers, right, and the DJs that we have on the stage. Yeah, the feeling, because to me, from very early on when I joined and when I told the teams, the important thing for the announcers and the teams to have is to have fun.
Okay.
Right? To really love what they do, because you can feel it when you listen to them, right? Yeah. If you are stressed out, if they're just doing it because it's a job or they're doing it to get ratings or whatever, that it doesn't work.
Yep.
Right, no matter how much you pressure. So as long as they're having fun, the emotions are there and it's real emotions, then people can connect.
So what are the challenges and opportunities of being a CEO of a radio station company? How do you navigate this?
I think for radio, I mean Malaysia and many other countries, there are multiple aspects to it. Right? One is to get what we call the content right, which is the music, the announcers, and the programming that we do on a regular basis, and trying to keep that ongoing and fresh. That one is a major challenge. The other one, of course, is to make sure that we are in line with all the regulatory aspects in Malaysia. According to our MCMC licensing regulations, the content code, we try to keep that and and because radio is a thing that so 96% of Malaysians listen to radio. That's according to the GfK survey. So we become a very important part of the country and the people, right? So they pick up whatever that we say and whatever music that we play, right? So we have to be very careful in what we say. We have to be very neutral in a lot of our point of view. So if you notice that a lot of discussion points that we have, we don't say this or that, and we present both.
Yep.
Right, and most of the time. And even if we have one segment that says A, right, then later we have another segment that says B. We do not make the decisions on behalf of the people, right? So we present everything. That is very important. So I think that is the biggest challenge on that, versus the entertainment component. I think the most difficult aspect of radio, very different from TV or other video services. Radio is something that it's so dynamic. Our program changes every day. So whatever that you are doing right now becomes outdated the next day. So it's one of those industries that is not scripted. It's very dynamic and it changes every day. So you have to find a new idea every day and to keep the energy, and this runs across the whole day, all the segments. So I think that's the biggest challenge in radio.
So how do you see that? Like radio, is it more of like the challenge of information, or is more of like a creativity, or it is more of like what actually make a radio station successful?
To me, at the end of the day, the heart of radio is still music, right? So, and I tell people, do not forget about that. So music is still the most critical component of radio. So you have to get the music right.
Yep.
Because each station have their music, what we call the DNA, right? So Hits has its own DNA, Era has its own DNA, Raga has its own DNA in terms of the music that we play, and that's the reason why listeners tune in to the station. Then you talk about the talk sets and the information that becomes secondary. It's important, but it's secondary to the music. Right? So, and even when people are talking and there's a segment, it's actually they are building it around the music, not they don't overshadow the music that's being played. So that's the key thing. So we have to get the music right, and we do very regular surveys all the time across the stations to get the music right. So we do the surveys with random calls and with a survey company to make sure that we are on point with the music that we're playing.
Sure. So what you're saying is that basically the element of music and the type of musics that you play, the content is where the radio station's fan come from.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. It's always content first. So content, like I said, is music, and then what we call the announcers, what they talk about and the kind of information that they have. Because different stations, people expect different things from different stations, right? So for example, the English station Hits, people expect high energy music, they expect very new music, right? Fresh music they have not heard before, and it's something they want to discover. When they, they don't want too old school. They want those. So that's it, right? But then if you listen to something like Light on the other end of the spectrum, people don't want you to be too hyper. People don't want you to be too energetic. People want level-headed announcers. They want segments that make sense, but they want music that crosses a wide era. From the 80s to 70s to the 90s to early 2000s. So the expectations of each of these stations is actually quite different. So we have to make sure that we pay attention to what people want and make sure that the music that we do and whatever we talk about, the content that we have, reflects what the listeners want.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're mentioning that, because if somebody asks me like, why do you listen to the radio? My own answer would be like, normally that is how I keep up with the new musics. So it's great. So what do you love the most about working with this industry? Like, I call people who are in control of their life and career, where they love what they do, they love who they are doing it with, they love who they are doing it for, and they love how they are doing it, right? So if I want to go through these 4 questions with you, so what do you love the most about this industry?
I think this industry, whoever comes into this industry, the entertainment industry in general, right? We don't, not only just radio, but the entertainment industry, it's, I think, one of the most refreshing and glamorous and dynamic industry you can ever be in, like, compared to many other industries. And I think that's the fun part. You get to, who doesn't like entertainment, right? And entertainment is all kinds of, you can be happy, you can be sad, it can be whatever, but everything is entertainment. So for us, being in the entertainment industry in Astro itself is a big thing. So like for myself, you get energized by content and the people. So I think that's the most beautiful part of the job. Radio has its uniqueness in terms of, like I said, the music part and people that we bring into the studios and our on ground. So those are kind of things that make people like us, like myself, love this job very much because of that.
So how about the people that you're doing the work with, like your colleagues, your team members? What do you love the most about being around them?
I think the best thing about Astro Radio is that the stations all are very independent, right? And they're all crazy people.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the thing about them is that if you want them to do their job well, you just have to give them room to be crazy and give them room to decide what's best for their listeners. It's not good to dictate this because each of us have a different sense of what we like or don't like in terms of content, right? Because of personal feelings. You cannot let those personal assumptions or feelings override what these teams are doing, because they listen to their listeners, they discuss, and that, so they're more, their ears are on the ground as far as what their listeners want.
Sure.
So it's to give that kind of room for them. So I think that's the important part of the job.
I think that is one of your leadership traits that I can hear from you explaining it, because you're coming somebody from outside of the industry, and then you basically hire the people that they are damn good at what they're doing, and then you empower them basically to do it on their own way. Is that correct?
Yes, I think leadership is about giving vision, a direction of where you want to go, and creating the culture. So these are the two important parts of leadership.
Nice.
And the rest of it, you just have to hire the people to do the stuff that you're not good at. I told you that I'm not good in music. You know, when I was with the music label before this, right? Again, music was not my strong suit. And so I did not dictate the music component of the music business. I hired the best, what we call A&R people we could find, veterans in the industry, and work with the best songwriters and composers and let them do their job. You know, sometimes they ask me to select, for example, which song we want to put in the album. I told them that is the last thing you should ask me to decide, right? Because that's not my strength. The key part of it is that, but I can make commercial decisions. Which distribution channel should we go to? How should we prioritize marketing? How much money should we put to promote this artist, and how, when, and where? So those are the key things. So for radio, again, it's the same thing. I do not dictate the music. I don't dictate the kind of content as well in the stations that we have. But the more key things, to me, the most important thing is to get the best people for these stations to run these stations, and that's what we have today.
Nice.
And give them the right culture to do their job.
Correct.
And to tell them this is a culture we want, which is to have fun, to have passion, and to really enjoy what we do. So that's the culture that I'm setting for Astro Radio, and that's what I'm hoping that everybody does. Even for the Shock and podcast that we do, it's the same thing. I think the people that run Shock and our Shock podcast have a free hand to do what they want to do. I just need to monitor whether we are heading in the right direction in terms of are people liking what we do. If not, then do we change? Do we add new stuff? Do we change the stuff that we're doing? So that's I think the key parts.
Nice. It reminds me of, like, speaking of the culture, it reminds me of like this culture that exists even in Netflix. Yeah. So they call it as freedom and accountability.
Yes.
So meaning that I give you the control over what you want to do, but also at the same time, I want you to be very accountable for the consequences of whatever decisions that we are making.
Yes.
So how do you find a balance between these two? That you give freedom, but also you want these people to be accountable?
It always starts with the people that you bring in and that you keep. Because there are people who have the natural tendency to do that. They are creative and they are responsible. So you want those people.
Yep.
Those who cannot do that, you either develop them or you have to move them out of the company because they do not fit the culture that you want.
That's true.
That's the other part, the leadership component. So once you have found the right people, or like I said, if they are a little bit imbalanced in one way, for example, they are very strong in creativity but not so strong in the discipline part of it, then you just have to make sure that you develop them in the discipline part and make sure that they are more accountable, and therefore that improves the situation. So I think that's where we need to find how to balance the teams.
So currently you are also the chairman of Communications and Multimedia Content Forum of Malaysia.
Yes.
That's a
Content Forum for short.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You got it as CMCF, right?
Yeah.
What is your focus there? What's your number one priority there as the chairman?
I think that the Content Forum is the guardian of the content code. And the content code is a guidebook for the content industry, right? And it's commissioned by MCMC, which actually then governs and regulates all the content of all the broadcasters and platforms. So the content code is crucial because what we call the Communications and Multimedia Act that we have in Malaysia is only like 2-3 lines of legislation, right? So it's not very, if you try to understand how to you regulate yourself based on those 2 lines of what you can't, because it's too specific and it's too narrow. So what happens is that then MCMC and the Ministry of Communications ask the Content Forum, can you please, based on these 2 lines of the law, create a guidebook that what people can or cannot do, or should not do. So that's what we call the content code. And it's also important because the content code is, although it came from the government, but the whole content code was actually created by the industry. So the whole content industry is self-regulated, and that is very, very crucial. We regulate ourselves. So the entire content industry, broadcasters, content creators, all came together and created the content code ourselves. So we actually wrote inside there what we can do, what we can't do, what we should do or we shouldn't. So we hold ourselves to our own standards, right? And the government says, yes, I agree with this. You go and govern yourself. So the self-governance, self-regulation part is an important part of the Content Forum. So it's like 2 things. So one is we help the whole industry to govern ourselves, to self-regulate. And the other one is to then create and manage the content code and to update it on a regular basis so that it meets the best standards of the country and international wise.
Sure. So when you're talking about content, are you talking about like the content that it comes out in Broadway media, or you're talking about user-generated content as well?
So it started with the broadcasting industry. So you're talking about TV and radio, and those were the 2 main things that it first started with. This was quite a number of years ago. But now, as more and more new platforms are coming up, so it starts to expand into new platforms as well. So OTT, streaming services, social media, so you can see the guidelines becoming more and more detailed. And
So one of the challenges that I think every one of us face on a daily basis is that receiving those like fake news.
I think as a CMCF or Canton Code, when we talk to the industry, our own people, right, is to make sure that our own people do not spread or create fake news. So we tell all the entire industry, this includes advertisers, this includes the content creators, do not do this, right? We govern ourselves, and if somebody does it, we flag them, and then there's a punishment to it, right? So that's most important. Then you have got all those rogue players outside, which then we help the communications industry to then through the broadcasters and through the industry to educate other people. So we do that. So you find a lot of broadcasters who are also once in a while publishing news to tell people that please do not get scammed or please beware of this kind of information. So we do that part to educate as well. So the industry comes together and we send the same message out to everybody and to try to educate the public, do not fall into this kind of thing. So because there's a limit to what technology and regulations can do, a lot of it is education, and that's part of what we do as an industry.
But how can you control, like, for example, let's say somebody, this is the issue that Joe Rogan has it like a couple of years ago, not a couple of years ago, I think during the COVID time with Spotify. So now that you also have like Syok, so the people basically are putting the content there. So are you going to open it up to public for them to put their content there, or you guys gonna have like more of like a control method over content?
I think for Syok, right, for Syok is a little bit more controlled. It's not a full user-generated platform yet, and we wanted to keep it that way for now, at least for the short term. In the future, I'm not sure, we may open it up. But again, because we are under the content forum and we are under certain regulations, we have to make sure that whatever is uploaded and whatever is being broadcasted or being played out is consistent with the content code of the country. So I think that's important to us, even in Syok or any other platforms that actually operate out of Malaysia. So UGC is good. It's a good thing because then you get a lot more content. But then if it's not handled well, if it's not guided well, then you come into problems.
You're going to go back to the square one. So being in the radio and music industry, people always wonder about the behind the scenes stories, So I'm sure you have a fair share of like seeing things happening behind the scenes. Is there any specific like moments that you can think of that, there was a crazy things happening behind the scene, but then on the outside, people only hear the sound, right? So you don't see the whole feeling of it.
For the radio, one of the things, that's why I say I like it, is because the crazy things happen almost on a daily basis, right?
Daily basis.
Yeah, so crazy becomes normal. So it's not really something that you would. So if it's a quiet day and there is no sound or no noise, it's a bad day, right? A lot of crazy things happen because of the fact that we bring in celebrities.
Sure.
We bring in politicians. We bring in police. We bring in the bomba, which is the fire department. So we bring a lot of people. All kinds of things happens in the background where people don't see. So there's a lot of planning. But I think one of the things that you will see here becoming more and more weird, that if you come across our stations, it's actually not in the studio itself. It's because TikTok has become so prevalent, and you notice that our announcers and our guests do a lot of TikTok. So if you walk around our studios, and not only our studios but office around, you find a lot of people doing funny stuff for TikTok. That's because we are generating a lot of content for it. So each station and all the announcers. So if you come here, you'll see a lot of people shooting videos, especially for TikTok, for Instagram. So that's the kind of those are the kind of things that happen. So but crazy is a normal day for us.
Sure. Is there any memorable event that you can think of that it was like a highlight of your work in the music and radio industry?
I think for radio, for us, the highlight has always been, to us, the biggest celebration is when we do well in the ratings, right? Because we have the survey and the ratings, every 6 months, and we have been very blessed because our ratings have been, very good for the past couple of quarters. So I think that will be the highlight. So to us, we all look forward to that. For those certain scores that we did not do so well, so that's the ones that we take it and we say, okay, we now have strong feedback of what to do. So that's I think all of us gather around those kind of things. So sorry to sound a bit dry on that kind of topic, but it's something that we do look forward to on a very, very regular basis. The other one, of course, is that we are involved with music very much. So we are involved with a lot of live shows, a lot of concerts, and those kind of things that I think our team are also very, very excited about. So every time there is a live show that comes, they get to go and interview stars, they get to interview artists, they get to go to those concerts and do broadcast from there. So those are the stuff that actually keeps everybody on their toes and very, very happy.
Sure. Speaking of artists and celebrities, is there any specific celebrities that you can think of that, you had this like thinking about like that person, and then when you meet them in person, you were like, oh, that's different?
Well, I think one of those that I really, in the years that I've been in the music industry, Astro Radio, I think the person that has stood out the most would be, I think, Dato Sri Siti Nurhaliza.
Okay.
She is in person even more charismatic and even more humble than people think, right? So even on stage, she's known to be one of the nicest person, and it's not just a public persona. When I had the privilege of her being in the label back then, and because she's won so many awards, she's so incredibly talented, she's so well sought after, but even after all that and after so many years being in the limelight in the industry, she is one of the nicest. So that one came as one of those, Dato Sri Siti Nurhaliza is one of those that would, if you come into contact with her, she actually is very consistent with both the public and the private life. So it's one of those things that I think I can still remember very, very clearly in my mind.
Sure. So how about you yourself? Like who you are in person and who you are when you are with your team? Like generally, are you like the type of, like, some people, they're outside, they're very extrovert, but then the inside at home, if you ask your family, they would say like, no, he's very introvert. So who you are outside and inside?
I really don't know how people see me unless I ask, so I need to do a poll. But generally, I'm a quiet person. I'm more introvert.
Where? Outside or inside?
At home.
At home.
I don't like to be in the public eye too much. Like I said, even if I'm asked to be in the public eye, it will be because of the job, not because I like to. Social gatherings, to me, it's quite painful. And again, I'm doing it because it's a job and something that I can turn a switch on and I can do it. I've learned to train myself well to do it. But naturally, I'm not really good. So for most social occasions, even from back then, even up to today, a lot of social occasions, I bring my wife along. Because she is my default PR manager, and she does everything on my behalf. She's very, very good with social. She's very good at connecting people. Bringing her along is very good because no matter how boring people find me, she will find my wife very interesting, and therefore, at least we have like a good connection with people around me. If it's just me alone all the time, I'll lose all my connection. So when I was back in Universal Music, most of the artists that we meet, even international ones that come, they remember her. Oh my God. They don't remember me. So we have, for example, we have met like Izan Chan, one of the biggest artists that we have in Universal at that point in time. And then he has come for concerts, and we've been to Hong Kong to meet him as well. Every time he comes to Malaysia, he does a concert, we go backstage. He doesn't quite remember me, but he will see my wife and say, Felicia! So he gives him her hug. Then I'm just following behind. I just have to remind him who I am. So that's I think that's the major difference. So you will find her so in a lot of photos on social gatherings, you'll find her there rather than me, or just me beside her or at the back.
Wow.
So that's how we manage it.
That makes me wonder like how you really go through this industry that you're dealing with a lot. But actually this is also kind of interesting, and now I'm thinking about it, is that I have met a lot of celebrities or people who are like, when you see them on stage, they're like super hyper. But then when they go back, you will see like, they're like very quiet people, and they say that's the part of my job. So when I go in front of the camera, I would be a very different person. I mean, to be honest, I am also one of those guys. I am also a very I consider myself as an introvert. But then when I'm in front of the people, I usually show the other side of Reza, that it's want to be engaging, want to be very friendly. I mean, it's not like you're faking it. It is something like you grow to that place because it's a requirement of what you do as your craft.
It's a stage persona. I think a lot of people have that as well. Same here with me. So in corporate social gatherings or on stage, I become a totally different person. But if I'm off stage, I'm out of the public eye, then I'm a very different person. There's a very, very famous rapper in Malaysia called Joe Flizzo. Right. So if you see him on stage, he's jumping around and he's really rapping. But if you have dinner with him, coffee with him, he is so chill, and he doesn't really talk that much, and he doesn't spit out bars just for the fun of it. He's chill. So and he talks not fast. He talks actually.
I think they're charging the battery.
Maybe they're charging, or they're reserving for something, right? But so he's quiet and he's very calm and collected when you are just discussing with him, and he's very strategic in the way that he thinks. Very different from what you would expect a rapper of his stature to be.
Nice.
A rapper to be. So it's actually quite different person.
So speak lesser and listen more.
Yeah, I think that's him as well.
Nice. To finish things off, we have this little game called Final Confessions, in which I ask you a series of quick fire random questions, and you must answer them as quickly as possible. Okay, so you can't think too long, right? So here we go. Who is your favorite Malaysian DJ?
I think it will be the Tiga Pagi era.
Okay.
The combination.
So who is your favorite Malaysian radio host?
All 11 stations.
That was a
honest, yes.
safe answer, So which radio channel do you listen to in your car? Okay, don't answer all. You just pick one.
Yeah, I switch between the English stations, all the 3 English stations that we have, Hits, Mix and Light, and also the Chinese stations as well. So My, Melody and Goxuan.
Yeah, which one you go first?
Hits and Goxuan, quite equal, 50-50. Yeah.
So what is your favorite local singer?
Siti Nurhaliza.
So what is your favorite international singer?
Oh, that's a good one. It's very old school. My favorite international singer has passed away. It's Kenny Rogers.
Oh, wow.
So but I'm very old school as far as
we have a lot of memories with that too. So I know you like hip hop. So what's your favorite hip hop group?
Well, it's a quasi hip hop group. So my favorite is actually Linkin Park.
Oh, we love that too. So who is your biggest celebrity you have ever met?
Taylor Swift.
Wow. So who do you wish to meet next?
Ed Sheeran. I've never met him. Yeah.
Okay. So if Astro Radio had a mascot, what would be and why?
That's a very tough question to answer.
All the radio stations, they have one.
Yeah.
I think it's time for Astro
to
have
We've
one.
never really had... Syok used to have this... I don't know what you call it. It's like a bear, popo. Yeah, but I don't know what it was. They told me it's actually the boba from the boba tea. Yeah, with 2 arms and 2 legs. Yeah, so... that's the only mascot that we have. So I think that's the only mascot I can think of for radio. But I think for us, because of all the 11 stations have their own DNA, they will all each have their own mascot. So I can't think of one that will represent everything.
So maybe we can have a mascot after this.
Oh yeah. Then I'll think of it. Yes.
So the last questions. So what would you choose on your first song if you go to karaoke?
Nothing's Gonna Change My Love for You, Josh Benson. It's
my
go-to song.
Nice selection. So Kenny, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you,
really
Dr.
an honor to have you, and it's nice to talk to someone who basically the man behind what's going on in radio. Guys, thank you so much for listening to Syok Life Confessions podcast. As usual, stay safe, stay inspired, and see you soon.